what really gives us our juice are the experts, right? They are the ones that introduce us to our clients. We have well over 1 million clients because of them. We have 2,000 experts on an annual basis. And they invite their clients, as Charlie was saying earlier, but really also our advertisers. So when you watch where your advertisers in the financial services businesses are going and you're talking with them, so you're talking to the NYSE, you're talking to the Chicago Merc, you're talking to all these major, Schwab and Fidelity, and when you hear their trends and where they're going.
And we are back with another episode of Sarasota SpeaX. My name is Brad Hannon.
Trey, the roofer, Martel.
Felipe Colon.
And we've got two very special guests today. Actually, Kim Githler was one of the first people recommended to us on this podcast. We've been going over a year, and we've got Kim and her amazing son, Charlie Githler. How you guys doing?
We are fantastic. How are you?
All right.
Thank you for having us.
Listen, we're coming up on Thanksgiving. We got Christmas, so we're in the spirit. How could you not be happy and joyful?
The weather's
in
great.
This room? You smell that pine scent, that fresh
I do.
pine?
I thought it was Felipe's cologne. No.
See, he's always got to go in on Felipe. I'm nice,
because I wore nice cologne, Brad. I'm sorry.
So, we actually met on election night. Eric's little party there, and what's funny is Eric was episode number 1 of the Sarasota SpeaX podcast, and right after that episode, he said, you should get Kim Githler on the podcast. That would be a great guest. And we have been trying voraciously for a year and a half to do this, and we finally accomplished it. So what did it take? What was it? Was it meeting me on the boat?
Yes, it was. You and your wife.
Look at that. Yeah. See, guys, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thanks, Brad.
But we want to talk about the amazing, legacy that you're building, obviously, and, all of the great things you've done. And I think one of the, the key pieces there is the Money Show. And we're excited to learn more about that. So tell us how you started the Money Show, what it's all about, and what it's evolved to. Because in a little bit of research, you can tell it's more than just one show as well. Like, there's quite a bit to it.
We do 39,000 minutes of video recording a year.
Wow.
So we do a lot of content.
How many minutes do we do?
Probably a lot. 39,000 minutes. So we are educators, and it started because of the passion to educate the retail investor, which back in 1980, that wasn't happening. Louis Rukeyser had just started his show, Wall Street Week with Louis Rukeyser, and I met him. I was very happy to have met him, and he was extremely passionate about it. I was doing it face-to-face, and he was doing it on television. And that's kind of how the whole story started.
Yeah, you actually kind of started from a pretty humble place. What did you do to start the company? Didn't you end up selling something?
We just found a guest host, by the way.
My pride and joy, which was a Corvette that I had worked very hard for, and I sold it for $11,000, and I started the company.
And at that time, the company was what? Because you weren't getting on TV with $11,000, right? You weren't starting a radio station.
At that time, it was one conference.
Okay.
One conference.
So you just started with a conference. And
one conference.
Bringing people to that conference and educating them there.
But it was really, I will share with you that having the experts around us that Lou could bring because of the access to the television show was really what helped us to start that company very nicely.
And the show is called Wall Street Week?
With Louis Rukeyser.
Wall Street Week with Louis Rukeyser, which was before CNBC and a bunch of other big media conglomerates. They're all big household names now. She actually started before them with Steve Forbes and Larry Kudlow.
I don't know if you've been paying attention, but CNBC, MSNBC, I don't know if they can even be called big anymore. They were They were the week before last, I think it was. There was more viewers. And I don't know that the time frame was a week or a day or whatever. On the Hallmark Channel than MSNBC and I think CNBC.
What is the holidays?
Well, it doesn't matter. It's the Hallmark Channel, dude. It's the Hallmark Channel.
My wife loves Hallmark movies.
This is a podcasting streaming world, that's for sure.
We digressed.
I love how you break down the early show, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but providing investor education to the retail investor. And when she says retail investor, she means the everyday workaday person who can access the American dream through the amazing power of compounding and investing in the equity stock market. That's something that we have in America that other countries do not have. They don't have the kind of equity market that we have where you can own the great companies whose products you're using every day.
Absolutely.
And you can grow with them. So, but back in the day, there wasn't really a lot of individual. I mean, unless you wanted to read the Wall Street Journal or Investor Business Daily, there wasn't like a central clearinghouse.
I don't think IBD was that.
It wasn't even around then.
No, because Bill O'Neill started IBD, and Wall Street Journal, obviously.
Right.
Barron's was. CNBC was really just starting at that point. Money Magazine started in like 1975.
People forget that investing used to be just for very wealthy people.
Yeah.
Those were the only people playing the game, and they had a guy you could go down to a brokerage, and they called him the customer's man. And it was usually a man, right, I would assume.
It was always.
Right?
It was 100% men.
Well, yeah, and I understand you were the first woman to serve on the board at SunTrust, right?
Yes, I was.
That's pretty cool. What year was that?
You're
Well,
asking?
never mind.
Are you trying to?
It was like the early 2000s, I believe.
I'm beginning to wonder. I'm a little worried about this.
Never.
It was last year. No.
Yeah, it was last year. Actually, it's next year.
Yes.
Only my plastic surgeon and hairdresser know for sure how old I am, and my mother says that number is unlisted.
Well, either way, you were the first, right? Which is incredible. But I feel like if CNBC and if there wasn't a whole lot of this going on, education in that space. It's an extreme
for retail
right,
investors.
for retail.
That's the big differentiator.
Define retail investor.
That's kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah.
For a retail investor is an everyday workaday person, an individual, not a large company with a large pool of money.
That's likely trading through like E-Trade or something like that.
Well, those things didn't even exist then. What I was getting at with the customer's man story is, if you were a wealthy person who wanted to individually invest in the stock market and not another company, you had to have a guy. And I say guy for a reason.
Literally calling probably.
Somebody with a CFA or something like that.
CFA was new then. They would call them up and say, I want to buy X amount of shares of IBM. Tell me what the price is. Because there weren't central clearinghouses. There wasn't transparency.
And the bid and ask?
Yeah.
The delta between the bid and ask, which is something that we really started to pay attention to, because in essence, the retail investor got hurt.
He is getting it at a higher price.
That's right. That's right. And
the clearinghouses are manipulating that too.
Oh, absolutely.
And then they're selling the information for the pricing.
Oh.
I mean, modern investing has just turned into something that I don't know if we could all foresee.
Well, and when we go down the road of investing, then you can get really deep into the weeds, right? And we've got a couple of, well-educated investors on the show right now that I don't know that we want to get into those weeds with. But I am curious, just on the education side, how, if CNBC is starting, if Wall Street Journal doesn't exist, if this is a kind of a new market that's growing and that's evolving, what was the it was like an uphill battle, I'm sure. So what were some of the challenges? Because not everyone's wanting to listen to that, right? And those that are maybe in tune, but how do they find you? How do they know of you?
Direct mail.
Really?
Okay. Lawyers lists, doctors lists. It was direct mail.
At the beginning, yes.
Just inviting them to the conference, basically.
Absolutely.
I would say, and then a little bit of today's stuff, it's also a lot of media partnerships and bartering media relationships. As soon as we have somebody that we find interesting to come and speak at the show, we have them go to their list and let them know, hey, I'm coming here, and we begin to create this ecosystem tied to all these different groups, because when these listeners and these viewers are looking at a certain expert, they go, oh, and he's good friends with this guy, and this guy's going to be at this show. I got to come here because I get to meet them, and then I get to learn about other people as well. And so
there's where that access comes into play.
That's where the ecosystem is. And,
so your customers still to this day at these events are the retail investor. Is that correct?
And financial advisor.
Okay, so
right, because since COVID, the world changed. And after COVID, we started accredited events for accredited investors. So we do four
that's that recent, huh?
That's that recent, yeah.
So now you're targeting people like Felipe.
That's right.
And also accredited investors are people with a certain level of net worth and sophistication where they can go into products that are not designed for retail. Right.
That's right.
So that's all become almost more mainstream these days.
So I think since we have
Right.
a registered advisor here and we've got you, let's pitch him on why he should be at the event, right? If somebody's watching this that maybe is like Felipe and is dealing in that space, why would he or someone like him benefit from it?
because you will not, first of all, when you are face-to-face with a community, the energy is really fantastic because we do virtual learning as well, but there's nothing like having that energy. So when you have great speakers like Nancy Tingler, who is Art Laffer's CIO of his hedge fund, and you have our wonderful Brian Belsky, who's head of CIO for BMO, when you have Liz Ann Saunders, who's is the head chief investment strategist for Schwab, and you're getting to talk to them up close, you're getting to ask your personal questions, right? And you're also in a dynamic community, which Charlie was saying to earlier, where those questions start to really banter, similar to a podcast, because it becomes a conversation. And it becomes something very, very interesting. So not only will you get macro ideas on the economy, you'll get geopolitical ideas on the world, you'll get policy decisions in Washington, and then you'll get specific recommendations and strategies from those experts that put those macro and micro views together. So it's exciting.
Now, when I go to conferences for roofing, and I'm an avid conference goer, so I'm the customer, right? I get just as much from the other customers in the crowd as I do from the people on stage. It's great to get hyped up and listen to successful people, get your juices flowing and all that good stuff. And if you take one nugget from the stage, that's great. But it's also really important for me to network with other people in my position that deal with the same headaches I deal with in other markets. They're not my competition, so they're more willing to share insider info in order to navigate the business world. Do you find that to be true?
Absolutely, and I think that's a brilliant insight on yours, Trey, because I will say that I sit in the audience a lot, and I get to know a lot of the attendees when they're there. If you go to the conference, while I'm there, you can come up and chat with me. I love talking to everybody. I remember getting a keen understanding on something a couple years ago, and I was like, it was about a certain kind of disruption that was happening, and I was asking an attendee, what do you think about this? Do you think there's a potential bubble here? He goes, oh, well, I tried that trick 15 years ago at the Money Show back then, and this is what happened. I'm like, so this guy's been doing it, about half of my life. He's been following everything. So yeah, it's absolutely.
He just cut out years of headache for you.
Yeah, exactly. He goes, no, you got to do it like this, and he totally maneuvered me out of a pitfall I was going to get into. So
now, is it cool to have customers that return for 15 years in a row? What's that feel like?
40.
45 actually. 44,
yes, I have customers. Let me share something with you. When I put because Charlie is, our one and only son and a great son, but I put out a little announcement because all of our attendees.
You're adopting?
My baby. Exactly. My mother had a baby show here, and Louis Rukeyser had a baby shower in Las Vegas during my show. So all my attendees said, when is he coming? When is he coming? So I put out a little announcement. 3,000 gifts came in. I was like, oh, no. All those thank yous. I wasn't expecting that.
I always.
They love him.
Yeah, I always. Whenever she's keynoting, she always loves to mention me, and then next thing you notice, everybody turns around and looks at me, and I'm like, oh boy, hey everybody.
I know.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's me. I'm here.
Yeah. He played Toy Soldiers with Louis Rukeyser on the floor during conferences. Wow. Yeah, he didn't know who he was
Uncle
playing
Lou.
with.
He was a good guy. He was an amazing man.
I used to watch that show growing up. My dad would always have it on. Was it Friday night? It would come on usually, I think. Yeah, it was must-see TV for financial folks back in the day.
Owings Mills, Maryland, 21117. I watched it every night. I got their zip code and the whole 9 yards.
Well, so it's funny that because like Trey, I do a ton of conferences. The business that I have out here, the Medicare call center, that business came to fruition through being at events, meeting people, and kind of rubbing elbows, and I was able to help them in some ways, and they were able to help me, and so I did not know we were going the event space, because when I look at the Money Show, I look at the Money Show brand as almost like a multimedia, not just events. So at what point did you shift from conferences primarily to online education platforms, to radio shows, to eventually maybe you need some podcasts, things like that, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
what
There we
what
go.
point did you switch gears into
And
more of a media
business
company? Yeah.
For a business perspective, the online stuff has to be more scalable, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so.
And much more cost effective.
Events are tough to pull off.
Yeah,
Events
here's
are
something
tough.
that's a little crazy. We kind of have that. We kind of had that. The company, since it's been around since the 80s, has kind of like this Forrest Gump thing that happened where a lot of companies that were at our size or level, they either, changed, got acquired by somebody, or, switched their business model and started outsourcing a lot of their things. We do a lot of all of our stuff is in-house. A lot of our software is proprietary. And when there was a lot of things that she pioneered in, and one of the things is virtual conferences. In 2005, she started a virtual show, the first virtual events, and I would love for you to kind of go into some of that, Mom. So that's a very interesting thing you did.
What really gives us our juice are the experts, right? They are the ones that introduce us to our clients. And we have well over 1 million clients because of them. We have 2,000 experts on an annual basis. And they invite their clients, as Charlie was saying earlier, but really also our advertisers. So when you watch where your advertisers in the financial services businesses are going and you're talking with them, so you're talking to the NYSE, you're talking to the Chicago Merc, you're talking to all these major, Schwab and Fidelity, and when you hear their trends and where they're going. So we heard that actually the Chicago Merc was launching, it was actually the CBOE, were launching Hotmail webcasts in 2005. Hotmail.
That's before Zoom.
That's
Google
before
Meet,
Zoom,
everything, yeah.
anything, and we started doing webcasts then.
Wow.
So that's kind of how we always regenerate our business, is through our customers, like you were saying, through our experts, and through our advertisers.
So kind of like, as we're paying, we're giving some information about the past. Here's where it came in and really helped us for the future. So COVID happened, right?
Yeah.
Look at our business model.
You guys have the model for it.
Our business model is, for that. But before we were deciding to do that, we had about 10 conferences across the country?
Face to face.
We were educating roughly around 50,000 or so people a year in a face-to-face environment at that time, from Dallas to Philadelphia to Seattle to San Francisco to Las Vegas to Toronto. We're the largest retail investor education platform in Canada. We have partners with the RBC and other groups, but basically we then hear, okay, we can't have any type of large gathering whatsoever. We book our shows out 2 years in advance. Wow. So that's, you're looking at, 30 plus conferences and the hundreds of thousands of dollars and all these different things that we have to now go, hey guys, force majeure, act of God, we gotta put all this on pause. But we then go, how are we going to continue our business? And so what she brilliantly came up with our CTO and our president, Aaron West, who's
and
like
you.
a brother to me. I worked a little bit on it, and Jordan Berger, I'm sure you guys know him as well. And a couple of our other senior team members, we all kind of war roomed at Mom's house, and we kind of just said, let's retool the virtual software and launch a virtual conference. And she immediately got on the phone with a couple major level speakers, and basically started to get back to work campaign, because at the time, this was before even working from home was an option for a lot of businesses. A lot of people couldn't understand how to get started in the world of COVID. And we had around roughly, I would say, 20,000 people online.
Wow.
For our 8 weeks after COVID hit in March, we did this at the end of April. Our team got it together. We launched it
8 weeks after.
8
weeks after COVID started getting intense, where people were afraid to even go.
20,000 people, and normally we're somewhere around 1,000 people, 2,000 people now. 20,000 people, because they were desperate for information.
Yeah.
We kind of have the rule of the neighborhood bar or something, or the neighborhood pub, where people could be having their worst day or their best day, but what are they going to do? They're going to go have a drink and celebrate, or they're going to have a drink because this sucks. Either way, they need advice.
Win or lose, we booze.
Exactly. Right.
No, but that makes sense, because when people are looking for answers, and especially the individual investor, where do they have to turn? They either got to hire somebody, or they need to hit the books. So you guys provided that outlet during a period where people had time on their hands, and they were watching all that volatility in the markets day in and day out. So
now, in your industry, I know what it's like in mine. I'm sure it's the same in Brad's, that more and more of these conferences it's become a wider spread thing. Do you guys see that more and more competition popping up that do something similar that you do?
I would say yes, but I am a free markets gal.
Yeah.
I'm a libertarian at heart.
Me too.
I believe in capitalism, and I think the more people that start, the better it is for
It'd be
me.
a very tough business for you to be in if you didn't
So
believe in capitalism.
The cream rises to the top, right?
I really believe that competition you can learn from, and competition you can certainly get better as a result. So I like competition. And yes, you are seeing competition. The issue is really relationships, right? So how do you pull those experts in? How do you pull so what they'll say to people that are starting, they'll say, well, let's see how you do the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go to you the second time,
Tough
or
to put
I'll
your neck
try
out on
you
the
on
line,
the
you know?
right. So we have a lot of loyalty. I would say that the decades of really running a family business with Charlie. I mean, when Charlie was born, and they all ask about him, and all the speakers. Art Laffer says, "Where's Charlie? Where's
He's kind of
Charlie?"
like a mascot, I feel.
He is.
That's usually for our pug, but I'll take the title. I'll take the title.
So it's a family business. It's multi-generational, and I believe in that.
Well, and based on what Charlie was saying earlier, with a lot of the, competitors in the space either evolving their business into something else or offloading a lot of it or taking an exit, right? You probably have had that opportunity several times that you've kind of turned down.
We have,
and that's what keeps it that multi-generational, obviously, because you could have had your exit and retired, right? But you're passionate about what you do, and my journey with finance in general really didn't start until probably 3 or 4 years ago, starting this business and being really good at sales before this, but that was really it. I could sell, I could build a team, I could train and do those types of things, but I couldn't manage money. And so I didn't have anywhere to turn for that education. I didn't go to college. I understand that you did not either, but you did graduate at 15, which is impressive.
High school.
Graduated high school at 15. So for your everyday average worker, what was the work a day? What did you say?
I'm the retail investor.
For your everyday average.
I use that expression. I don't know if you want to use it.
Blue-collar roofer wakes up, hammer in his hand.
Work-a-day investor.
Work-a-day.
You need to be careful. That's an advanced term. You don't want to use that as
work-a-day investor.
It might be misinterpreted.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Okay.
It's a caution.
Felipe can use the term, but I cannot. But for your everyday average person that is looking to be educated and the Money Show would be a great place to turn. Where do they start?
Absolutely.
Is that event? Do you have events for those people?
I would say you need to be cautious on the internet. You really do, because as much as I am so happy, because I never had the internet, we never had any of that when I started. I had to go to a library if I wanted to look something up. I mean, we are so lucky.
And access to information.
Yes, and the advent of digital is amazing. However, you have to be cautious. You have to do your due diligence. You have to talk to people when you're investing with a company who have invested. You have to look at and really research in your type of situation. Advisors, find your mentor. Mm-hmm. Find 4 or 5 great mentors in various asset classes. That's a very important thing. And once you find those mentors, you get together, you share your ideas, and you follow through. And discipline is probably your biggest challenge, because you're going to get very excited about a potential buy. And then you're going to say, maybe I should sell it. I've made so much money. Should I sell it? Should I sell it? Well, people that sold NVIDIA aren't too happy right now.
Now,
there's a buy and hold strategy to that. But where do you go? You go to places like some of the institutions. I think Fidelity does a good job with education. I think Schwab does. I think TD does. Always know that it's not independent, but you get a lot of good research. And then I would also say online. There's a lot of great webinars. I also like originals. I like people who have skin in the game.
Correct. Yeah.
People who have money on the line. Those people that have money on the line, they learn a lot faster than the people that just sell.
Right.
So that's another.
Yeah, because I guess a big part of the conference is when these experts come on, they're as what we call in the industry, they're talking their book.
That's right.
I mean, they're recommending things that they own, and they do have that skin in the game. So, yeah, it's not unbiased advice, but their interests are aligned with yours. So much of the time when you get advice from other financial entities, salespeople, you're getting biased advice because they just want to sell you something, right?
Right.
Whether you make money or not on that sale is like, that's your problem once they sell to you.
Absolutely. I my personal experience from going to all the shows is that I really think that, Fidelity, Schwab, and a lot of these big groups are, they're great institutions. They're great brokerages. But what I personally like, I'm always fascinated personally when I meet the smaller guys, these small little money manager guys that have like this certain idea, this certain thing. Like Mike Turner, for instance, he's a mathematician by trade, very interesting gentleman. And, there's a ton of different other money managers that, when you can get two things, you can see what their type of, strategy is. And then you can also personally reach them on the phone, I like the bigger groups, but, it's very hard for them to focus on you, on a hands-on level that the smaller groups do, and that's why I personally like smaller money managers.
Hey, we are having a blast here getting to know Miss Kim Githler and her son Charlie. If you want to get to know them a little bit more, stay tuned for rapid fire questions fueled by food and beer.
I'm Kim Githler.
And I'm Charlie Githler.
And we are The Money Show.
And this is Rapid Fire.
10 random questions, 10 specific answers, nothing off limit. This is Rapid Fire fueled by food and beer. Do you have a favorite musical artist?
Frank Sinatra.
Fly me to the moon.
Andrea Bocelli.
Falling in love with you.
Morning person or night owl?
Morning.
Completely night. I stay up all night.
We all loved grape nuts as a kid. What's your favorite cereal?
Cheerios.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Have you ever played a musical instrument, or do you think you're a guitar hero?
No, never.
Unfortunately, I played the saxophone for a little bit of time, but it was not the best.
Whether it's Creed or Debbie Gibson, what's your favorite karaoke song?
A Milli by Lil Wayne.
They say I'm rapping like Big J and Tupac, Andre 3000. What is Erica Badu?
My Way by Frank Sinatra.
More than this, I did it my way.
You can only eat 3 foods for the rest of your life. What are they?
Pasta, pizza, and steak.
Pasta, pizza, and steak.
What's your craziest impulse buy? Mine was a restaurant.
No, you go first.
You go first.
An Aston Martin.
Cartier bracelet.
If you could instantly become an expert at anything, what would it be?
History.
Also history.
If we forget history, we will most likely repeat it.
Who's the go-to-goats? Tom Brady or Michael Jordan?
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady.
After, of course, eating food and beer, where's the first place you would take visitors in Sarasota besides the beach?
Selby Gardens.
I would second that, Selby Gardens.
All right, so you touched on the internet being like a great source of information. Do you want to give some advice on what to steer clear of, like some fake gurus or some scammers? When should that red alert go off in a consumer's head when they see it? False promises on the internet.
When you see somebody saying, like, I just leased my $100 million house and, we just had a big party. It's great. Buy my course for this sort of thing. Or
are you talking about Grant Cardone?
I'm not using any names. Okay. Not using any names, but the first guys that you'll see if he's like 19 years old and has like a sports car or something and is like, going, I made all my money doing this or that, and buy into this cryptocurrency that you've never heard of. There's always, there's a lot of, there's some good actors in those spaces, but if you look, I always look at history whenever I see something that I'm like, what's going on here?
That's a great
and
tip,
if you look at the 80s, there was pumper and dumpers everywhere. You look at the 70s, that whole period of time, these guys, basically did the same exact thing, but now with the social media aspect of stuff and, the algorithms kind of help them out. They've really all jumped into that whole space on promotion through, all this flash and cash. It's like visually, it's like ice cream or something like that. You can eat this stuff. It's going to taste great. It's going to be entertaining to yourself, but it's not going to help you. You're going to gain weight and not get healthy. It's like if you eat your vegetables, which is what we do. We provide the vegetables because we're unbiased education by the actual experts. If these
that's good.
If these 19, 20-year-olds are jumping in every supercar you've ever seen, we're
that they rented on Turo.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say they probably rented it. If you saw these guys on CNBC or with us or something,
they get eaten alive.
Yeah, exactly. They want to be on TikTok or something like that, which there are some good people on there, and we're trying to do some marketing on there too. But the whole reason why these social media platforms are really exploding with these guys is because of the flash and cash and all that stuff.
Yeah,
you walk to wealth.
Exactly.
That's my opinion.
You don't sprint.
You don't sprint, and you also walk to wealth over time with great CEOs, great companies, great value. Mm-hmm. If someone doesn't understand the market, I'd probably say put $100 a month every month away into two things: the S&P 500
Correct.
and a technology fund that you have a lot of confidence in, whether it's the QQQs. You've got some terrific, great funds out there. You put that away. You don't even have to look at it again. You never take any money out. You dollar cost average in every month. You can do it at 15, 20, 25, and you will be a multimillionaire by the time.
Now, is that something that if your everyday average person that's looking to learn this goes to the MoneyShow.com and is kind of exploring, is there an entry level, some entry level stuff that is just education on the market, how to get involved in the market, why you should, retirement, IRAs, things like that for, the lowest common denominator all the way up to the most sophisticated investor?
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question because our average net worth is between 4 and 5 million.
Okay.
So there's a very sophisticated investor, trader, and financial advisor, which has multiple accounts that attend our shows. We are just starting a product called MoneyShow University.
Wow.
And that is for the beginner. That is for people like Christine Benz, who just wrote a great book. She's one of the top people at Morningstar, and she wrote a book on personal finance that's terrific. Nancy Tengler wrote a book for women that need to, look at their investments because still women are not as savvy as they used to be. Now, I have a 60-40, or we have a 60-40 split women to men, but it's still 60% men. Wow. So we still need to keep pushing for the women to get involved because they have children, they have a family, they get busy.
And it's interesting because in America, we often see those kinds of disparities between female and male investors, but in other countries, that's not the case. Like, I think Japan is probably one of the most interesting example where women there really have been driving the equity investment market. And China, right?
Huge.
So I think some of it's cultural, but we're moving in the right direction at least.
We are. We are, and we've gone through a lot of wonderful products. I mean, when I started in this business, the stock commissions were a fortune. We are pennies on the dollar now.
Right.
There are no commissions to speak of.
Right.
That was unheard of when we started. So an investor was already behind the eight ball because, in essence, they were paying many, many percentage points to their brokers to buy and sell, and then they got hit on the
Delta.
buy. Yeah, I mean, it was a tough time. So we really pushed for the retail investor to become what I would call self-directed. Now, many of our investors have multiple accounts, but they always have their own account that they trade.
Yes.
So, and I encourage that, because the way you learn is trial and error. I wish I could say. And the other thing I wanted to second to Charlie's point is that when you hear people telling you that you can make 1,000%, 100%, and you're going to double your money and triple your money.
Or 10x it.
Oh, 10x it, exactly. I can just tell you that that's a rare occasion, and we all, say thank you to the gods when it happens.
Right.
Yes.
But a rare occasion.
Right.
Yeah, you can always just look, and to Mom's point on, just putting away money and how important that is to save, and I'm not seeing that amongst my peers. A lot of them are living paycheck to paycheck and, just not saving and not putting away. And, I highly recommend it, as to what she was saying. But, if you want to feel comfortable on something, and like, oh, well, the stock market can be, volatile and all this stuff. If you look at the Dow Jones Industrial when it started, it went through 2 world wars with a nuclear bomb that happened at the end of the second one. It went through a global pandemic. It went through multiple recessions of all different kinds, because everyone, tries to compare everything to 2008, but each recession is a different disease with different symptoms. You can look that the Dow Jones fluctuates, but always is higher than where it was before. And that's something where you can put your money away and believe in the American economy and the American people, because that is why it's so strong. Not just because of it being the stock market, but it being us.
Yeah, I heard a USA chant somewhere.
Okay. Listen, we need to remember this more, because that's what separates us from all these other countries. I mean, we have regulated markets for a reason. We have property rights endowed by the Constitution for a reason. We mostly adhere to these things, and that's why we have a lot of the success that we do. I mean, every other country wishes they had these opportunities that we have. There's a reason that most people in other countries aren't investing in their markets; they're investing in ours, because they know these companies are putting out real earnings and making real profits.
With real CEOs.
With real CEOs,
with a free company that with a free economy that not some shady government's going to come and shut you down
or take your money. I mean, if you had gold in Mexico in the 70s and the government decided they wanted it, they could take it.
Yeah, it was theirs.
Yeah, that was it.
Yep. Well, to Kim's point with the self-directed, that was some of the best advice I ever got from my accountant a while ago, was to have something that I was working on myself, and to have somebody that was a professional that was helping me as well. And doing it on your own and learning it, you also get to you learn that BS filter a little bit, right? Yeah. So now you're learning, and you can kind of filter the information you're getting, whether it's real or maybe a little bit sketchy if it has a 10x involved in it or something like that, right? And listen, I know a bunch of people that are doing really well with grant stuff as well, so we're not knocking grant, but it's just the 10x thing.
Any investment that people have to scream from the rooftops to advertise might not be as good as the ones that everyone's keeping for themselves.
Right. And you also want to watch the kind of fees. You want to understand what fees are being made. And Jack Bogle, the Bogleheads, and of course he started the Vanguard Index Fund, and he was one of our speakers. And obviously Vanguard's one of the largest asset managers now in the country. But I will share with you that Jack Bogle very clearly said, you make your money when you buy, and you make your money over a period of time, and you don't want to be feed to death. The fees count. You want to pay as little in fees as possible, so that percentage that you're making each year doesn't get eaten alive by fees. And that's, the issue I have with some of the syndications that I see there, is because sometimes they buy these houses and they sell them the house. And then they also mark it up and they fee it to death.
Right.
So, you have to understand some asset classes, like multifamily is very difficult. And I would also say that, we need desperately in this country affordable and workforce. And that's really what I hope to see in the near future.
Well, I think
those real estate developers.
I think you said it earlier too, when you were talking about the barrier to entry with the fees, when in the early 80s when you guys started and things, the commissions that you were paying and such, the barrier to entry is so much lower now, and that's why I love the timeliness of MoneyShow University too, because I feel there's such a need for that in our country, and just everywhere, from the lowest common denominator to the most sophisticated investor, and it's probably a lot of the reason why your market, your average net worth is $4 to $5 million, is because those people have been with you since the beginning, when really you had to be at that level to effectively.
And they probably started out at several 100,000.
Right.
They've just accumulated with time.
So
they walked to wealth.
They walked to wealth. That's right.
Yep. The one thing that I see a lot, and I'm not going to. This is kind of an apolitical thing, but a political thing, not to either side, because I see it on both sides. That a lot, coming off of this election, is that they've both been selling to the average American that it's really hard to establish the American dream. Some people on a certain side of the aisle have argued that it's not even possible whatsoever. If you're any of this type of if you're any of these demographics, you'll never be able to make money in your life, and you need to have government come in and help you and all these other things. And we need to get rid of all the billionaires. And the thing that, it really makes me sad, because I sit there and then I watch our audience from all different walks of life, all different types of color, all different types of religion become successful. One of the more successful guys that I see at the conference is an Indian man, and he's a very, very nice guy, and all the struggles that he made to come to this country and, work hard and find the American dream. And he tried so many times to become successful, and he ended up doing that. He has his own doctor's practice and invests all of his money and gets savvy at the shows. But a major thing that I saw was when Peter Schiff, one of our speakers, who I think he's a great speaker. I'm not always on everything he's saying, but he's an amazing, shocking speaker, and from a lot of stuff that he does. But he went on Joe Rogan, and he said when he was on Joe Rogan, let's stop focusing on where this person is at. He's getting arrested, but he's a drug dealer. He's established all this business in a clandestine environment. This is not a stupid person. Why don't we look at the regulations of where that person is and why it's harder for him to not just open a business legally, go through the process? Why is he not more interested in doing that? And why is it so difficult for him to do that? And why don't we focus on that versus focusing on the fact that he's been, not able to really make it in that environment? And Joe Rogan immediately said, why is this conversation of libertarianism and small business focused not a bigger conversation? And why is it more about, taking money out of one people's hands and putting it in the hands of the others and just, do a Peter Pan situation?
Right.
And he just said, I'm predominantly shocked by that. And Peter Schiff said, yeah, it's not a conversation because it doesn't get votes, because, people don't think of it that way because it's easier to sell fear and basically say that the system's against you. And that's just not what I believe when I see our money shows. I see a ton of people that are working hard and just get more and more successful by walking to wealth.
I have a saying, the harder I work, the luckier I get.
I have that written down right here. I actually have that written down to ask you about, because obviously you've worked hard and still working hard to, grow the product, if you will, Money Show.
I love what you said about, and you used the term syndication. I want to make sure that didn't go over anybody's head. What she was talking about is some of those real estate private placement ads that are online, where they tell you can own a piece of this real estate and you can get this much cash flow.
And you say they're eating off the.
What they don't tell you is all the hidden fees they're charging. And
their realtor fee on the buy and the sell, and amongst others.
It's not what you make, it's what you keep. Always remember that.
What is the exit strategy? A lot of people don't know what their exit strategy is. And you always go into something thinking, not in a stock, because I always am a long-term hold. And I do trade, too. I like leaps. But the point is...
Leaps, love them.
Better than falls.
It's a long-term equity option.
Yeah.
It's a long-term equity option. So that if you really like NVIDIA and you know that they're going to be coming out with new things, you can buy something a contract in the future to buy it for a certain price. And you pay a premium for it, and there really isn't any value to the contract. But there is a value if you are on the right side of the contract. Right. So, yeah, we like it. But... what I'm sharing with you is that oil and gas is another area. Yeah, you get a great tax deduction. But there's so many different things you have to be careful of. You have to understand the driller. You have to understand the well. You have to understand all the things that apply to that investment. You have to understand what happens if you have dry wells. What happens to all of that? How many fees I'm going to tell you that the guy that syndicates always gets paid.
Oh, yeah.
That's the bottom line. They always get paid. And there's nothing wrong with that. I always like rewarding people for what they do, but I like people to know what they're getting into and why.
Yeah, you got to have the full transparency on both sides.
Exactly.
That's what's great about the Money Show. From what you all have shared with me in our conversations in the past, you guys, it's called the Money Show for a reason. You don't just cover the same basic asset classes, anything related to money, and you're bringing on those experts that are going to tell you how syndicating an oil and gas contract works. That are going to tell you, what are some of the pitfalls in investing in multifamily. They're going to give you the real inside information that you wouldn't get if you were just hearing a sales pitch.
Exactly.
And it's not being gate kept, right? Like it's not, you obviously pay a fee to go to the event, and you pay a fee to join the university, and you pay a fee for these things, but that education you're keeping, right? So,
well, the university we don't charge.
Oh wow.
We actually it's more of it's our passion. It's the next wave, and I will say this, that Gen X and Gen Z are very interested in education.
Yeah.
Very interested. And I'm very proud of them for wanting to be more independent. And they also don't have a lot of confidence in the institutions, to be quite frank, because the institutions have let them down. The banking institution let them down. The health institution let them down when everything closed. It's just like, do I have confidence in the institutions? I gotta know this myself. I gotta get involved. So I'm really excited about the Money Show University. Because we will do a lot virtually, but more importantly, bring them face-to-face to every conference.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
when as a part of one of those generations, I can agree with you. That
yeah.
The information, the era of information is definitely here, and it becomes almost like a healthy addiction, right? You start to learn a couple things, and you apply those couple things. You start to learn a couple things more, whether it be an industry-related conference like a roofing conference, an insurance conference, or something that obviously everybody should have some level of passion about, and that's money, right? It's not. You don't have to be. It doesn't have to be the center of your life, but at some point or another, you're going to be concerned with how much money you have in the bank, right? Whether it's because you got a medical bill or because
it's essentially oxygen, right? You need it to live.
Right.
Without it, you can't live.
Right.
Well, it's knowledge. Just like they said in Game of Thrones, a mind needs books like a sword needs a whetstone.
You love a good Game of Thrones quote.
It was a good one. It was a good one.
It is.
Well, knowledge is power.
We could probably spend an entire show talking about the Money Show. We hope that as we develop the Money Show University, we can get you guys back on and talk further about that as well. But we would be remiss if we didn't kind of get into some of the real estate development that you guys are doing now, and how that happened. Was that an investment strategy? Was that another passion? How did that side of the business kind of come about?
Well, I will share with you that I've been in the real estate game here for quite some time. And when you are running a business, you kind of take your profits and you look to diversify. So that was really the end game there. And we, robbed Peter to pay Paul. And we actually went against a very dear friend that we like a lot, Mark Kaufman. And we bought our first building downtown. And that first building, Mark was giving him 100% cash, and we didn't have the cash, so we offered a first mortgage, and we offered a return on that. And he couldn't believe we got the building because they wanted income. So we got our first building, and that building went into another building and another building, and it's another form of wealth building. When you really look out at the wealth in America, it's small business, it is certainly real estate, and it's family, and the generational wealth. I mean, that's how you look at what the whole world
the wealth
like.
triangle.
Yes.
Now, are you heavily invested in real estate around Sarasota or around the nation? Or?
Sarasota.
Okay, so do you like to focus where you live for a particular reason?
Yes,
Okay.
because I know where I live.
Yeah.
It's that knowledge thing again.
Yes, absolutely. And also I'm personally very invested in Sarasota. I think that there's a lot of roots to establish here. I think all of us have opportunities here to grow, because when you go to like a big area like a New York or Miami or even Tampa is starting to get a little large, there's just kind of like these small groups all over the place. A lot of them are experts, a lot of them are stuff, but they get really cliquey. It gets very hard, even if you become successful, to get involved with guys, and the one thing I love about Sarasota essentially is a growing small community where, everybody's like, come on, come in. Like, I'll talk to you. I'll talk to anybody. If you want to go to any of these events that you go through, like Brad and Mom just met at the election night with Eric Arroyo, and there's so many opportunities to collaborate and grow, and I'm wanting to be in business here for the next 30 years, so I know that my kids and everyone, when we become the size of Miami or New York, just by how growth goes over time, they're going to be very, very much entrenched amongst the leaders of this community, and it's a very much more bigger open door than I've seen in San Francisco or New York or these other places. So that's one thing I'm very bullish on Sarasota about.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, like, I feel like when you have roots here and you have, a passion for it, for the community, and that's, kind of how this podcast stemmed to begin with is, you guys mentioned that we have a motley crew of entrepreneurs here with insurance, roofing, and investing.
I don't know if
and
I use the word
finance.
motley, but I did use the word
I love that.
Unusual.
I'll be Tommy Lee.
Unusual cast of characters here.
I got one for you.
Exactly. So it's just kind of our way of, giving back to the community in a way, as well as, there's certainly a self-serving aspect of it that we get to educate ourselves on the show. I mean, ever since episode 1 with, Eric Arroyo, learning things about, roundabouts and traffic and, all of these things that you don't really pay attention to, such as, things like the MoneyShow and finance, if you're not in that world. We're learning from everybody that comes on the podcast, as well as Felipe always says, introducing people to the community that they don't maybe know, but they want to know. I probably butchered that a little bit, Felipe, but
he usually says something about having a cup of coffee or a beer.
I'm no Felipe, but I do think, everybody has an opportunity to get involved here, and maybe it doesn't start with real estate. As you mentioned, small business is a great, a great way to build wealth.
Coffee shop, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Tweeds. Look at what Tweeds has done in this community. It's phenomenal.
They're on like their 4th location, right?
7.
Yes. It's always more than
7.
My bricks.
Like 7.
It's 5, 6. It's quite a few. I think he's got 5.
If I had to put money on, I'd say 5.
5.
Yeah.
I was impressed at 3. So.
I was thinking of food.
I was
and beer.
impressed by the truck, man. He
Exactly.
pulled his in front of my office.
Yeah, I did too.
I was fine with the truck, but the retail locations are great, and he's doing a great job of marketing, and he's in the community, and I think what I'm getting at is we have that vibrant community that does, to your point, kind of let you in, right? It's not, you're not kind of, it's not the good old boys club that's, you can't sit with us type of thing. And so
we all like
we
to
love
learn
it.
from each other,
Yeah.
which is nice. We're going to share our knowledge.
Right on the Sarasota SpeaX podcast. That's what the Sarasota SpeaX podcast is about.
And when it comes, we're as rich as much as having good people in our community as we are our location. I've seen many people on this show talk about how beautiful this area is, but it's very underdeveloped in terms of the competing with Palm Beach and Miami Beach, and they are their own most beautiful markets. But one thing I love about us that we have on our side is if you look at if you look at Los Angeles and like you look at Malibu and those other areas, what do they have that the east coast of Florida doesn't have is that the sun sets in the water. So you look out every evening for drinks with your friends or family, and it looks like a painting. That's why we're the Sunshine Coast. It's absolutely beautiful every time you go out in the evening for drinks, and you're lucky enough to get up on one of the rooftops and have a good position. It's just like a movie every single time. All the girls are pulling out their phones and getting their Instagram pictures. You know what I mean?
Influencers in the wild.
Yeah, exactly. They're all
and now we have our
it's
53-acre park,
place.
which is
Yeah.
fabulous. I mean, the Bay Park is amazing.
Pivoting to Bay Park, and you have one particular project that I think we want to talk about today, and that's one of your newer developments, One Park.
We have been, I would say one of the things I wanted to share on this podcast is about surrounding yourself with strength, which Charlie said Sarasota is terrific at, with leaders and mentors that you have a lot in common with. And I've always done that. And in my real estate world, I've always found a wonderful partner. And I found a wonderful partner in Property Markets Group. Property Markets Group is developing the One Park, and it's a fabulous luxury development. We are well over 50% sold. We just broke ground. And, I would say that the role of a developer, and this certainly speaks to them, is to make a difference. And it's to make a difference in a good way, with good governance, with good government, as well as giving back to the community. So Property Markets Group, because of the park, then contributed a wonderful major contribution and was the first sponsor of the park because he knew all those residents were going to be there. And that's, a Benderson gives back. Look at the growing. You've got, when we bought the Hyatt originally years ago, in fact, I closed the day he was born.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
And Bill O'Neill wrote an article on the front page of the paper.
Happy birthday. You get a Hyatt.
Sweet.
I know, right?
Get a room.
Yeah. But
Free room
what I'm
service.
sharing with you is when we bought the Hyatt, we actually looked at the property all the way down on Boulevard of the Arts that is now Murph Clobber's area, and we donated that. So developers have the ability to change the face and create the culture for a community. And I embrace the developers like Benderson who can. Look at what he's done at UTC. How long would that take our community to be able to do? And people like Michael Saunders, who started here and has done so much in our community over the years in real estate and had a voice and actually helped us get the St. Regis out there for, Murph Clobber's property. I mean, it's wonderful that we have a St. Regis out there.
Yeah, it
it's
is.
a great thing
I love that
for
location.
us.
That's
So,
beautiful.
I really think that investing in the community is important, and I also think giving back and philanthropy is incredibly important.
Now, how would you, so on that note, and we'll pivot here in just a second, but on that note, you've done a great job of that, right? From taking your small business to a sizable business, and along the way, getting involved in the community, finding mentors, investing in the community. What would your advice be to someone that's got a small business that's growing, that wants to get more involved in the community? What are some of the best things that you did in order to put yourself in a good position?
I would say attending events. The Chamber of Commerce puts on some terrific events. I would say getting involved in a charity of your passion and finding the like-minded people within that universe would be very important. And I would also say you need to be involved in local government, because I would say that that's one area that people don't think about.
Yeah.
They think about the federal government. They think about the state government, but they never think about the local politics. So I would say getting involved locally and being a part of your community is so important.
Yeah, that's one thing I love about you guys is that you guys did a great job immediately starting with all the city members and all the city elected. Kyle Batty's an awesome gentleman. So is Eric Arroyo. Love that guy. You guys really did a great job at getting them involved. And one thing that really fascinated me is I did not know this, but Sarasota is actually the #1 philanthropic town in the United States.
Did you learn that from the Sarasota SpeaX podcast?
I did. I knew it before, and I think, was it Margaret Wise that mentioned it?
I think it was Mrs. Wise.
Yes,
that was on.
she told that to me.
Yeah,
she told that to me.
Okay.
That's how I
This
found
is
that out.
Angel Boy.
You
from
had
Margaret
insider
Wise.
information, obviously.
Yeah.
That access again.
Yep.
Yeah, she actually enlightened us with that statistic, which I was mind blown by.
Yeah, if you look at the size of us versus like 11 million people in New York or, 19 million in Los Angeles, that's insane. We're a town of 50,000 in our downtown area. That's insane.
Yeah, and we have, what do we have, 800 events a year?
Oh, it seems like there's one every
1,000?
day, so
I know.
who knows? Yeah, a couple
So
every day.
Doing those events are important, and taking an interest in your community is probably what I would do.
Well, and that's great advice. And, like I was saying before, the self-serving aspect is we get to bring guests on and ask them questions that are meaningful to us. And so that one was meaningful to me. But I will say that a lot of that, so it wasn't somebody that said, hey, you should get involved in local government, or hey, you should get involved in local events. It was bringing guests on the podcast who are involved in local government or are a part of, like, literally serving local government. It was bringing guests on that have these philanthropic ventures that, have kind of opened up the eyes for, I think, all of us, and hopefully the community that watches the podcast as well, because that is the ultimate goal, right? So with that being said, we're talking about Sarasota. We got to, pass it over to my man Trey for the famous question, and we'd love to get your take on this.
Or you guys are here from the Money Show, and if you get hit by another car, Terminator Law will get you a lot of money. And he also has a question for you. What are your thoughts on roundabouts? Do you love them? Do you hate them?
I like them.
Tell me why.
because I can go faster.
Then a stoplight.
Yeah.
I don't have a stoplight. I can keep going. So I actually like them. I think that there are a few very complicated ones, especially the one in Fruitville, which worries me a bit because it takes
that one right there.
Yes, it takes some maneuvering. But, I like innovation. And I like the fact that I can move quickly. I mean, I will say to myself now, do I want to go down 41 because I can keep going around the roundabouts, or do I want to go down second with some of those stoplights?
The first guest to plan their day based on roundabouts. I like this. What a journey. How about you, Charlie?
It depends on the time of year and time of day. It's I think that it's not the roundabout's fault. It's more of the driver's fault. And when you're dealing with some folks, they're most likely not from here. They'll stop and they'll yield when they're supposed to be going forward and everything. It just
too much brake checking.
Yeah, they think they're being polite when they're actually messing up the system.
Yes, exactly.
Roundabouts are very capitalist. If everybody works in their own self-interest, the thing works great.
Absolutely. If everyone's a good actor,
Exactly.
I think they're great. I think they were a great idea because I think our traffic lights really get backed up. So I'm gonna say yes, they're a good thing.
Now, is there anything that we could do collectively to try to push along the construction? Because how long has the one been open in front of our house?
Like 8 months, it's horrible.
Yeah, so that's my biggest complaint.
Yeah.
The time it takes to construct one. There's, I understand the government's involved and things tend to lag.
That's why it's taking long.
But a damn year to build a circle road. Come on.
Well, a little birdie told me that there's some people with the FDOT that watch the show. So I think in no time we'll get them moving a little faster. And then we're also working on the Sarasota SpeaX roundabout. We don't know where it's going to exist.
or if it will exist.
But if we keep bringing
it
up.
We sure do like talking about it.
If we keep bringing it up, one day we'll have a roundabout named after us.
Yes.
And even if it's not officially named after us, we might just pick one and say, hey, that's the Sarasota SpeaX roundabout.
Well, who knows? Maybe we can help you with that.
There you go.
We'll talk to some people.
You said it on air.
You got it.
But
don't forget.
One of the reasons we ask about roundabouts, it's just kind of a fun way to ask a question that's really a proxy for how do you feel about growth and change in Sarasota. Mm-hmm. And with your background, both building your business, the Money Show, from literally zero to, what did you say?
$11,000 Corvette.
Oh, the
She had some seed capital.
That was my seed capital. I cried when that car got sold.
Did you ever get another one?
We cried a little harder when she had to drive our Subaru.
Corvette because Charlie's father told me that I wasn't mature enough to drive it.
Maybe you can get behind the wheel of Trey's. He's got one.
Yeah, no, my wife drives my Corvette, and there's been reports that I got a report. Hey, tell your wife to stop whipping the Corvette so hard around town. I said, whoa,
that's good.
You're hardly insured on that thing. Relax.
It is, though. It's a proxy for growth, and I know you guys are for the growth and for the innovation, and especially doing it responsibly. You talked about the affordable housing and how important that is, and all of that stuff. So we appreciate that. One of the questions that I'm most interested in is the way that we finish every show. I'm going to pass it over to Felipe to let him do the honor, but I look forward to the answer to this question. Just no pressure.
Oh,
well, I think there's going to be multiple answers, but so we always end the show on the same question, and that's you've been on Sarasota SpeaX. You see what we do here. By the way, thank you for being here. We enjoyed it. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
Oh, absolutely.
But who do you know who Sarasota needs to know, who we may not know? Who do you recommend that we invite on Sarasota SpeaX?
And remember, we work hard to make it happen.
Michael Saunders.
All right.
There you go. I've got people that I want you to.
I would say Jonathan Mitchell would be an interesting.
Can you break it down for our viewers why people need to know him here in Sarasota?
Yes, because he has grown multiple businesses and worn many hats. He's also a multi-generational family, and he moved to Sarasota from Los Angeles, from Beverly Hills, where he was born and raised, and brought his businesses here. And I'd say, I don't want to say how many, but he owns a lot of businesses.
He told
in
me a
variety.
few. He told me quite a few.
In a variety.
And he's agreed to come on too, by the way.
Oh, has he?
Him and his wife Michelle is
Michelle.
She's amazing.
Him and Michelle agreed to come on.
Yeah, we love their family, and they're just great people. And you wouldn't know, but you know, he's probably put together over 100 businesses or around that number. You know, an amazing gentleman.
Funny story. I said, so you own Wolfies? And he's like, yeah.
Exactly.
I said, what's funny about that? I don't get it. What's funny? He goes, well, yeah, that's one of the many businesses I own, and you know, you'll see me there bussing tables. I love that. Yep. I mean, he's there every day from what I hear, and he's every day. Not just checking the finances. He's there bussing tables and
meeting the people, connecting, and creating community.
And that's not his only business, but I think he's passionate.
We might know him from Wolfie's if we dine at Wolfie's.
Yeah, 100%.
You got to have the cheesecake.
You got to have the cheesecake.
Ideal.
Yeah, and just they have
fabulous,
amazing food there. And I'll tell you one of the stories is that I was helping getting his son involved with some political people, and he's like, "Oh yeah," he goes, "I'm like, how you doing? I'm gonna go pick up Joey now," and he goes, "Yeah, we're having some payway." I'm like, "Yeah," and he goes, "We own them." I'm like, "Oh, there we go." Do the same exact thing. He chuckled,
and he had a little card that said, "I get it for free," which is very important.
For free. I would hope so. Yeah, I would hope so.
But he's a wonderful man. Yeah. I'd also say Gary Hoyt. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had Gary Hoyt on?
Architect.
Yeah. Max, the son.
Yeah. Max is great. But Gary is responsible for, I'll tell you a story, because I've been his partner for 40 years on different things. But he really is incredibly creative. And he said to me over a glass of wine, there were 4 of us, Maureen, his wife, I adore and wish I could see more of her. But we were sitting there, and he was saying, "What do you want to do? And what do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I want to take MoneyShow to this." And I was very young, and I didn't really have my vision. He looked at me and he said, "I want to change the skyline of Sarasota," and he has.
Yeah.
Almost every building that you see is his work.
All the new stuff.
From the Jewel to Marina Towers to he was involved with the library, so he's an incredibly active person in the design of what developers do end up doing. So I would say yes. And he wants to get college kids involved now in a studious way of building cities across the globe. So he's really a great guy.
Yeah, I would say he's not done yet. We still got some work to do in the skyline of Sarasota. Right now, it's still just below the skyline. I feel like maybe go up a little higher.
Looks great from the water. You ever get on a boat and look towards Sarasota? It looks incredible.
Yeah,
I can't believe it every time I see it.
Yeah, there's a lot of plans.
When I used to take the boat out way before Charlie was born, there were like 3 buildings. So
Ritz-Carlton was a Denny's.
Really,
no
yes,
kidding.
Yeah, Denny's and the John Ringling Hotel. Mm-hmm. So who would you suggest?
I would suggest
because we get 2 because there's 2 of you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Perfect.
I'll do 2 and I'll be quick on because I know they're long in the tooth. But Charlie Shrem is one interesting gentleman. It's actually his birthday today.
Happy birthday, Charlie!
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he's the other guy, and I love Charlie. He was one of the more influential guys in the starting of Bitcoin's notoriety and stuff. He's a speaker of ours. He was on 60 Minutes. He started one of the largest Bitcoin exchanges back in the 2015, 2014 range, and he became one of the larger guys in the Bitcoin space, and he's a very interesting gentleman. He's been interviewed by Anderson Cooper and a lot of other guys. Highly recommend him.
He's one of our speakers in Sarasota.
You introduced me to him.
Yeah.
You've met Charlie. One time downtown, we reconnected, and then he. I have his info.
Yeah, he's
great
an amazing
guy. Really interesting story.
And he lives here, so he's a great Sarasota guy. And then another guy that I relate to a lot is Matt Buchanan. He's a great gentleman. I relate to him a lot. He's taking on his father's business. He's working a lot in the space, and he's really growing an amazing family. I think he just had another kid. I think he's got like 6 kids or so, and he's 8. So he's got a lot.
Wow.
And every time I see him, with 8 kids, I'm struggling to comprehend maybe 2 kids. He's got 8 kids. He's got amazing businesses. He works with his dad all the time, with the Ford dealerships and everything. Every time I see him, it's a, hey, how you doing? Biggest smile in the world, really focused, and he's got all his plans all together. I look up to him and relate a lot to him.
Love that.
So
I think that may be the best pair of answers we've gotten in a long time, if not
each
ever.
Gave us 2,
right?
Which is great.
That's awesome.
To make sure to take you up on those. Thank you so much.
Please do. They're amazing people.
Yeah, we might have to have you guys back because there's really just too much. Maybe
for sure.
Maybe more towards when one park opens.
Absolutely.
We'll have another conversation.
I have to say, I'm terribly excited to have a roundabout named after us.
I know.
Thank you so much.
We'll do our best. No guarantees, but I can guarantee that I'll no guarantees.
Thank you so much.
No guarantees. We'll do our best.
Thank you.